to the next segment. I think this will be a more interesting one that Henry might not tip. Big game ability. Big game mentality. Big match temperament. Wayne Rooney, let's hear it.
From a young age, bruh.
Oh,
been doing the bets. At the time that Arsenal was at the top pinnacle of the league, Rooney destroyed them as a teenager. So, I mean, and then he just went on to do more and more as he went through the United ranks. I'm thinking about Champions League. I'm thinking about Premier League games. Big games. He came up with it. You know. I remember one of my favorite goals of him is he picks the ball up on the halfway line, lays the ball off, kicks his butt down all the way to the edge of the box, and just slides the ball in against Arsenal. So, I mean, it is. I don't think you can argue with Rooney.
Scored in a Champions League final, although we lost it.
Don't bring that up. This is a Premier League.
Was pivotal in the FA Cup. But yeah, he's actually got the highest goal scoring record against the Premier League's top six as well. But that can go obviously down to longevity. But okay, Aguero. I think he's actually second to Rooney, and it's pretty close second in terms of goals against the top clubs in the league.
Any top 60, he's a nightmare.
Especially United.
And you also got to bring up big game with clutch. Yeah. He has the most heartbreaking moment for any Manchester United fan.
Yes, you will. Bro, we won that league, bro. And then Aguero was like, denied.
I will say this, when Aguero came on against United, if he started on the bench, I was just like, here we go.
Yeah. It was like Torres.
Those near post goals don't get me started.
Oh man.
What about Alan?
Yeah. I believe Alan was pretty consistent throughout his career, not just against big name players, quickest player to reach 100 goals, actually quicker than Thierry Henry. So,
oh wow.
Yeah, quickest guy is done I think in 120 games.
Put it on the accolades, bruh.
Actually,
Don't do that. Don't do that. Stop that. Stop it.
I just think in general, as a footballer, Alan Shearer has been consistent throughout his career. Like I said earlier, the amount of goals he's had in the latter stage of his career, 20 every season, just menacing. And I mean, Michael Owen, we said Graham Souness, who we asked was on the list earlier. All of these top players, Ian Wright as well, Arsenal player, all going on about how quality was playing against him. So he's pretty consistent.
Finisher of the highest order, I would say. And I think his record against the traditional Premier League top six is also up there.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure what it specifically is, but I'm pretty sure it's up there.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just considering at the club he's playing. Coming from Newcastle, coming from Blackburn.
Oh, well.
Yeah, he's been doing it though. So he's
playing for Newcastle, who was the big teams he was playing against? Burnley. No, I'm joking.
You know, John.
Thierry Henry.
You know, to the panel and to the crowd, I'm a speaker of truth, breaker of chains.
There we go.
And in so doing,
breaker of chains. Which chains are you breaking, bro?
You know, I have to say this. I do believe that Thierry Henry's big game ability was ultimately his biggest flaw in this. I give the big game ability, and I'm already putting my vote there, to Wayne Rooney. I give it to him. But I will say this in defense of the king. There are a few instances that need to be highlighted. 03-04, Arsenal in their invincible season got beaten by Chelsea in the Champions League. The very next weekend, they playing Liverpool. 2-1 down at halftime, and Reece scores a hat-trick against Liverpool. Clutch, and that kept them on the verge and kept their momentum going for the invincible season. But I suppose Liverpool's not a big team now, are they? Right? Then,
whoa, that's a whole other debate.
Oh, shame. That was a dirty shot. Yeah. And then if you look, you know, Thierry Henry, when you look at the body of work, he's played in La Liga, he's played in Italy, and he's played in England. And the one thing about Thierry Henry is when you look at his top, you know, the teams where he got his top 10 goals against, 7, 6, and 5 is Manchester United, Chelsea, and Liverpool. And that's 9-9 apiece to Chelsea and United. And then it's 10 to Liverpool. That's 28 goals against them. So I think the narrative that he was not a big game player, is it completely true? I think, you know, given that he wasn't as good as he was against the other teams, you could throw that into debate. But like I've said, I've already seeded that it is Wayne Rooney. I do think Thierry Henry gets too much criticism for his lack of big game ability, and it's unjustified. But naturally, the best players always get the harshest criticism.
Yeah. I also think that criticism stems from the Champions League as well. And talking from purely Premier League basis, you have a point. It's not like he was poor. I mean, that goal against United, the flick.
When he rolled Gary Neville.
Bro, off the back and then just hit it on. Oh.
My goodness.
And I think, a lot of context is required. Also, people give Thierry Henry a lot of flack for that Champions League final loss against Barca.
But then,
the semi-final was exceptional.
he scored the only goal.
But it's not even that. Context is required because my old man supports Barcelona and I watched that game. A lot of people conveniently leave out that Samuel Eto'o was taken out by Jens Lehmann in the 18th minute and Arsenal played with 10 men for 72 minutes against Ronaldinho, Deco, Eto'o, Puyol. I mean...
One of the better sides of the years.
It took a substitute to help there, so...
So we're finally going to have a different name on the board. Shaq, who are you voting for, your lad?
I'm going for Aguero.
No, it's a fair shout. He's not too far behind Rooney in terms of the amount of goals against the Premier League traditional top six.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sad.
Chaza?
Rooney.
Aish!
What's that?
I've given my vote.
Rooney! Finally one on the board for Waza.
It was hard saying that my throat is dry. I need a halls.
2 segments left, boys. This is going to be an interesting one. We're going to try to keep this a bit short and sweet. I just want to hear some of the views and opinions of current, former managers and players of your current player. I'm going to start with this because I think this is one Scholes might take hands down. It's going to be close. It's going to be close. But this is going to come down to the why I think he doesn't get the accolades and the stuff that he doesn't deserve. Guys like Zidane, Xavi, Iniesta, Pep Guardiola, I could go on. They all highlight him as the best English midfielder of his generation, if not the. And Zidane never actually explicitly said of what generation. Zidane actually said he's the greatest midfielder of his generation. He also said he's the most all-round best footballer he's ever played against, his toughest ever opponent. And this is coming from someone I deem as the greatest midfielder of all time.
I agree.
Yeah,
and I mean, guys like Alex Ferguson's obviously biased, but I mean, even Arsene Wenger, his own GOAT said Paul Scholes is the greatest Premier League player of all time. I have to highlight that, I'm sorry. He said it several times on live television. So yeah, what about Thierry Henry? Since he already said that my GOAT is the GOAT.
Well, I will put it to you like this. The second greatest footballer of all time, Lionel Messi, did say when Henry arrived at Barcelona, just on presence alone, I dare not look at him because I knew what he did in England. Do you know that Jamie Carragher said, and Jamie Carragher was in that Invincibles era, Jamie Carragher said, coming up against Thierry Henry and the Invincibles was the most difficult thing in football. Did you know that Sergio Ramos said, in full flight, Thierry Henry was unstoppable? Italy's assistant manager at the Euros once said, the only way to stop Thierry Henry is with a gun.
That's a fair shout. Shearer?
Well, these are all players of older generation, even maybe during Alan Shearer's time. Like I said earlier, we got Graham Souness, we had Ian Wright. Ian Wright also especially said we'll never ever see a striker like this in the Premier League. So.
He was that archetypical flipping centre forward.
No, I think he has the most goals in the box. Not even Vinicius. Well, Vinicius' goals there is not even close, but there's no other striker that has the most goals in the box.
And that's where a striker needs to be. It's where a striker should be. Was it?
Lots of people have spoken about him, man. So I have to say, this part of the segment I'm not completely prepared for, I'm not going to lie. But, in terms of, I listened to Gary Neville and the likes of him and Jamie Carragher talking about how naturally gifted Rooney was at such a young age and how he was bossing the Premier League almost at a teenage level already. Those are the kind of quotes that stick with you. Where... and I just think that Rooney at the level that he played at such a young age, is not talked about as much as it should be.
But let me ask you something. Here's a general question. If I tell you there's 3 Manchester United supporters here, what does that imply about the other 2?
What do you mean?
If I say there's 3 Manchester United supporters on the panel, what does that imply about the other 2? That they're not Manchester United supporters, right?
What?
What's your point?
Here's my point. Do you know that the great Sir Alex Ferguson, in his book Leading, said, "I do not mean to demean or disrespect any of the players I've managed in my 26 years, but there are only 4 players I consider world class: Eric Cantona, Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, Cristiano Ronaldo. Your greatest manager of all time didn't even consider Wayne Rooney world class." Now, I don't know about you, but how can he even be in this debate then?
No, but I'll count that because his relationship with Wayne Rooney was never ever that level like he was with guys like Scholes, Ronaldo, and Giggs. I'm not saying he specifically left out Rooney because of that, but you never know. But I will back up Rooney with this thing. A lot of what guys like Thierry Henry, Gary Neville, Alan Shearer, a lot of what guys that have played with him or played against him they talk a lot about his consistency. Over the years, playing in multiple positions, just an all-round great footballer, and his leadership, his drive, his energy, his work rate. That's a lot about what people go on about.
Well, in the same book of Leading, one thing I think that we can agree with Aguero, with Shearer, with Scholes.
Stop saying Shearer.
I can't say the name properly.
It's Shearer.
Right, with Shearer or Henry, is that there was a sort of unilateral acceptance that these guys wanted to be, at a supreme level. In Sir Alex Ferguson's book Leading, he said by 27, Wayne Rooney couldn't stop going to the pubs, the booze. He never really took care of himself to actually get to the level where we can say, Wayne Rooney would be the outright GOAT. Because the way his career started at youth, there was all the chances that if he maintained that level and commitment and kept himself in shape, that he would have actually been the undisputed GOAT. But unfortunately, that's the way it fed out for his career.
And he's managing Derby and Ronaldo still playing.
Yeah, if you compare that picture of Ronaldo at Derby and Rooney, and Ronaldo still playing at the highest level.
Aguero?
Hey, with the guys that you've mentioned, okay, they do outshine Aguero, but for me, in a football understanding, I feel like he does fall that category well. Coming from scoring, being a player, being a team player, I feel like he deserves that.
Aguero? That he's viewed as better than others by other players, because this whole segment is about what great players or great managers or current formers view Aguero.
Yeah. He's okay. For City, he's a legend. For strikers, he's something that most strikers want to beat in the league. They want to perform better than Aguero or Sharp Salah.
Or maybe what his teammates said about him.
Arguably City's greatest ever player.
Yeah, he's really dangerous. Even when he beat Rooney in that record.
Toure.
That video where how many Premier Leagues goals did you score? It's 100 and it's end. So that says something.
Wait, what record did he beat Rooney in?
The top scorer, striker.
No, Aguero's third. Aguero's got 183 Premier League goals. Rooney has 208.
Yeah. I mean, there's one where he beat Rooney, and then he even videos himself. He records himself, and it's how many goals you scored? 100 and. Yeah, I don't have the video.
No, I'm not sure about that, bro. Sorry. It might be something I might just miss. Okay, putting it to a vote, lads.
Scholes. So I've admired what people say about Scholes, and especially coming from Zidane, from Xavi. I mean, Xavi used to say the Barca players sit in the room and they watch Paul Scholes videos.
No, Iniesta said they used to watch videos about him at La Masia. Lionel Messi himself said Scholes is a teacher at La Masia without even being there.
Exactly. So, I've always admired what people say about Scholes. So,
Check.
I'll give it to Scholes, bro.
It's 2-0.
I don't wait.
Give it, Nick. I know what you're going to say.
To Rooney or Scholes. Just to be clear this time.
Yeah. Okay. We give it to Scholes.
Just to hear for the sake of it.
Henry.
There's so much we can do. Scholes 1.5. Henry still in the lead with 2.5. Well, gentlemen, but we're heading into our final section. We're going to talk about your player's ability. Overall ability as a footballer, longevity, consistency, technique. Let's hear it. Alan Shearer.
When it comes to strikers, I don't think you'll get a better striker, to be honest. Going forward, it's going to take a while to get a proper fox in the box. All these strikers are adaptive strikers. You get your Rashford who can play deep. Now they're pushing him wide. You get Lukaku who can't track the ball. There's all these strikers that don't have the core striker abilities. You know, other than, well, his ball control is immaculate. He can strike the ball better than anyone in the Premier League, I believe. And for me, his consistency up until reaching 36 and still scoring 20 every season still stands. I mean,
he scored some bangers as well.
Yeah. So
he could hit the ball as well.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, just his technical brilliance in his day, in the 90s, I don't think there's a player close to it. For me,
that's a tough one.
I
David
don't think
Beckham. Hey.
Eric Cantona.
Okay.
Carry on.
But comparing the 90s era to the more modern era, players changed quite a bit. Your abilities evolved. They were required to play more than one position. Thierry Henry, for example, he's also someone that can play slightly deeper because he could run at your players.
Yeah.
Someone who could pick the ball up and run. Alan Shearer
required
required service. And being a player that can deliver on service, getting a long ball in, controlling it and putting it away. Simple as that. Our modern strikers are battling with that. Again,
that's true.
Also,
arguably probably the better header of a ball than anyone at this. Any player that we've mentioned.
Yeah, he relied on service. So for him, his ball control, his finishing is second to none still. So in that 90s era, I'd still say he's the best technically gifted striker there ever was in the Premier League.
Did he retire at Newcastle?
Yeah.
That's hella longevity.
Yeah. Because I mean, if you're only looking at the 90s, he was still playing when the league was at 42 games a season, and got down to 38. And I think the first time the Premier League moved to the 38-game season, he actually got over 30 goals. I think he reached the 30 mark. So not in the league, but in overall, his overall season tally. So yeah, for me in that 90s era, best technical striker.
This is going to be I must admit, this is going to be a close one because retiring 36 in the Premier League is
it's crazy.
Aguero,
dangerous in the box, outside of the box.
He could hit the ball.
Could curve the ball.
Shot on him.
Near post, punishing you. Just maybe headers. Nah, not the guy. He's more the type player where you need to like feed the ball to him. You wouldn't you can't make runs, but yeah, he does the job.
Doesn't undermine his ability at all, though.
Yeah, he finishes. He does the job.
I mean, it's
short and like stocky, but good stocky, like
good, decent first touch, quick feet. Technically, also an immaculate footballer. You ask me.
I just love him.
Pure striker of the ball. I mean, left foot. He's got a flipping good left foot. To Henry or to Rooney? Let's hear it, Rooney.
So, like I mentioned it a little bit at the beginning. The fact that he played in multiple positions under a lot of the managers.
Yeah.
You spoke about how they'll always bring in a striker to get those 40 goals a season, 20 goals a season. So Rooney was often playing deeper. Rooney had a similar ability to Scholes in that regard of the long balls.
Long passes.
Yeah.
He could make a tackle. He could work rate off the ball is insane. But then I have to come back to your point about longevity and how he started so well. You expected him to get to a better level when he eventually retired, or before he eventually retired. I do still think that he did wonders in terms of the fact that he played in the Premier League for as long as he did.
Since he was 16.
At a decent level, yeah. So it's a long time that he's played in the Premier League at a decent level. And sometimes
16 seasons.
Yeah. 16 total. Yeah. Yes, it's
from the age of 16. So even though obviously he left in his early 30s, the fact that he was there from the age of 16.
Yeah, and I just think I can't give him I can't give him my vote for this one because of the fact that he didn't. You made it clear that the idea that because you start as well as you do, you need to. The consistency is key in terms of work rate behind the scenes, And I think if he did what he was supposed to do, I think he could have been, like you said, the undisputed GOAT.
He could have, really could have. But
yeah, so I do still think that overall as a player, football ability wise, he's probably well-rounded in terms of every aspect of the game.
Yeah.
He
I'll
could
say this.
do
Do you
most
remember
things.
when they released those Total 90 boots? I
I
think
love
those
it.
90 ones,
Total
I think
95.
that truly epitomizes a young prime Wayne Rooney, a total footballer.
Yeah,
You know?
actually, yeah.
That's how I will look at the young Wayne Rooney. I think it's just more. That's why I said for me it's sad because I look at it as a case of what if.
Yeah. No, that's true.
I've got him.
Also, I think he's also underestimated from a technical perspective. Great first
Oh
touch,
man,
decent left foot.
that goal against Newcastle,
Come on,
The,
guys.
bro,
that technique, bro.
volleys.
Volley.
Oh man.
Volleys, not a
Bicycle
half bad dribbler as well.
Yeah, no. I mean,
obviously,
that's like I
we
said.
can go on. His pace obviously deteriorated
Yeah.
over years, but in his early years, his pace was blistering,
Yeah.
and his will to attack players just for the fun of
His
it.
drive
Was,
alone.
I mean, I remember. Okay, it's not Premier League related, but watching him in the 2004 Euros running the show as a striker,
Yeah.
Well, it set the ground for his Premier League
dropping back
entry.
into other different positions, even
Yeah.
at the age of flipping 18, 19. It's Thierry Henry.
You know, Gianfranco Zola said,
Oh Lord. We passed the quote section, Wade.
Get to it.
grace, elegance, beauty,
Mm.
Thierry Henry. Dennis Bergkamp was one of the finest technical players we've seen. And he admitted that the technical ability of Thierry Henry is superior to his. We've just spoken about that magnificent goal, the flick, the volley against Manchester United. Kolo Toure said, the combination of pace and power was the scariest sight for a defender. I don't know how many of you will remember that goal against Spurs where he ran from one end of the park right to the end and scored. Dribbling at pace, both legs. You know, Dennis Bergkamp once defended Thierry Henry when they said he doesn't really get much, you know, on the head. And he said, when you have the technical and 2-foot ability of Thierry Henry, you don't need your head.
Yeah.
And when you look at Thierry Henry coming in off the left to the striking position, he redefined the role of that left wing to striking position. And we look at Thierry Henry, the 2-foot ability, the pace, the power, the technique, the touch, the finish. It really makes the ultimate
Back heel goal as well.
strike, the back heel goal. When you look at, you know, Thierry Henry, the best way to, you know, describe Thierry Henry is, I don't know if you saw, there's that picture that I even posted on the group with Zanetti and them fighting over Henry's shirt after it. Henry was truly the perfect footballer. And, you know, I don't want to bring in that Zidane quote because you gave it to me. So I'll let you say it for me. If you please say it for me.
No, I'm not going to say it for you. Speak your scenes, right?
No, you know what? I think I'm just.
Do you remember what I said?
Yeah, he's technical perfection, if I'm not mistaken.
Zidane said that Henry was the most gifted technical player he's played with.
I'm sure you can say it louder. That hurt your throat.
No, I'm not going to say it louder.
But look, in one thing I will say about Thierry Henry too, you know, as much as everything was there, look, he didn't die out as quickly as Rooney. He spent 8 seasons in the Premier League, but he was in America in his early 30s. And I think that the longevity argument is the only case I can make against the total ability argument of him.
I wish he would have stayed in the Premier League a lot longer.
I also do. So, you know, for that reason, I'm also going to prematurely give my vote. I think Henry is going to take this category as he rightfully should, but I'm giving it a tie because I believe in longevity. It's undoubtedly Paul Scholes.
How can it be a tie and it still be undoubtedly Scholes?
And longevity alone, I'm saying.
Okay.
Please listen.
Yeah, so I'm gonna give it. You know, it's a tough one. I'm similar to Wade in this respect because, from a technical perspective, him and Scholes are very tight, very tight. If anything, one or the other could tip each other. Just obviously in terms of the separate things that they're good at.
Yeah.
So from a technical perspective, Scholes is unbelievable, guys. Over 1,200 accurate long balls in the Premier League. Over 7,000 accurate passes. I mean, his first touch, exceptional. You know, this thing of dribbling, of obviously being a skillful player, for me, it doesn't necessarily mean you can do these tricks and these tricks. For me, being a skillful player also includes ball retention. Not losing the ball, especially in the middle of the park when the ball is so... You mean, most players couldn't get near him. A lot of something that Peter Schmeichel said about Scholes is the best way to actually judge a player is how good he is at his worst. And when Scholes dropped performances that weren't to his peak, no one noticed it because he was still good. because he was still quality, because he still launched maybe 7.5 out of 10 performances. No one would notice it, but that's poor on his poor Scholes' level. But yeah, longevity, he takes it. I mean, started in the Premier League, retired in the Premier League, came back to the Premier League, walked down to his local sports shop, bought a pair of cheap boots, went back and started for the Premier League and won our last title in 2013. So I'm just gonna nudge it for Paul Scholes in terms of
my God.
Just in terms of longevity. But overall ability, it's very close between him and Henry. But for me, it's Scholes, half mark or whatever that may be.
Oh, I'll give it to Henry then. I was actually appreciating Paul Scholes in that moment.
So you're giving it a tie?
I think, I would give it outright Henry if he's, if his career didn't go so quickly to America.
So you're giving it to Scholes?
No, I'm giving it to Henry. The ability alone, when you look at the ability of Thierry Henry, it's second to none. You just have to listen to the quotes we've put forward here about the technical ability, the power, the grace, the elegance, the perception, the touch, the two-footed, the flick against United. Everything about Thierry Henry personified more than a striker, although he was a striker. Redefining a role. Like Thierry Henry said, it's not about the goals. It's not about the trophies. How do you elevate that position? He elevated that position to a position like no other.
But I could also go on about certain things that Scholes was exceptional at that Henry wasn't.
But didn't Sir Alex Ferguson in his book Leading say that he didn't want to play Paul Scholes in the bigger games because he was worried about his temperament?
Yeah, but that's because...
That's an important part of... If you don't want to play Scholes in a big game, that's testament to the worry you have about his temperament.
Henry's discipline?
Henry's that great compared to Scholes.
I'm asking, I don't know.
It was great, I'll tell you that now.
So the reason that temperament thing is just because he wasn't shy to go into a tackle. But I'm saying, like what you said about Henry is 100% valid, but I could also go on and on about the things Scholes was technically good at as a footballer that Henry wasn't necessarily not as good at, but just doesn't tip Scholes at. So we could go all day about this. So let's just put it to a vote.
I say Henry.
In the chain, yeah. So it's 1 Scholes, 1 Thierry Henry. Shaq?
Actually, I'm going to go with Henry.
Gents, don't let me down.
But this is United bias.
So that I'm trying my best to not be
it's
biased.
United bias, so we got to let it.
I'm gonna go Shearer.
Okay.
Wow.
He's defined the striker role. Because like I said, the modern era has evolved the striking role. Like where they said you get your left wingers drifting in, your proper fox in the box has been defied by Alan Shearer, and that you don't get that.
And also, we never really know his true ability because it wasn't exemplified by going to a bigger team.
Yeah, he stays
where he'd play with caliber players that would even grow that further.
Yeah, he lifted his team. So I'm gonna go with Alan Shearer.
So Jose, you want to help for me? Nick, it's 2-1.
Let the United bias come out.
No, but just be honest.
No,
Try put it aside. Be honest.
It's just hard though, because I still think, in terms of all-round ability, like everything, I'm talking heading, strength, ability, passing, tackling, work rate, all of that. Rooney's got all of that. All of it.
Yeah,
No,
I agree.
And I just think in terms of a complete footballer, he was that.
But that's so difficult to argue though, because then you'd have to look, let's say your midfielders would constantly be winning those type of accolades, whereas your defenders are not getting those.
Yeah, so
they can't really strike a ball, but no one can defend like that. Your strikers, they're not really meant to defend, but you see, it's very tough.
It's tough as well because
I
also love Wayne Rooney. I think he definitely deserves a shout. I mean, let's not.
Sounds like your heart is with the Wayne Rooney.
Just put a vote, bro.
It is, and that's one of the big reasons that he was my goat coming into this discussion, is that he could have. I think
But let's also assess his ability based on when he was at his best and not looking at the
So that's exactly what I'm saying, is that because at his best he was almost unplayable.
And one thing I think we're actually underestimating is Wayne Rooney's long-range striking ability when he burst on the scene for Everton against Arsenal. Who remembers that? Okay, look, that hurts, but I mean...
Remember the name?
Don't do that.
Wayne Rooney.
Also, do you all remember that United volley where he was running for it and
That's
just...
what he spoke
Yeah, the
It's-
that's the one I mentioned.
Listen
sometimes, bro.
But
to count you, and this is coming from a Wayne Rooney lover. Wayne Rooney was my favorite player growing up. He still is. But ability alone, which includes obviously things like longevity, things like technique, things like what's the other one we mentioned?
Consistency.
Consistency. Yeah, to be fair, that's something Rooney would be close at. But on all those bases, does he tip Thierry Henry and Paul Scholes? It's tough. It is tough. I only decided on the day I was going to go with Paul Scholes over Wayne Rooney. But
can I do a third each? No, I don't know, guys. Like I'm gonna have to go with Rooney. I'm gonna have to go with Scholes.
Yeah, stick to your guys.
So Thierry Henry takes the last one. Since he had 2 votes.
I think Nick was with me in this whole one. Nick, you were in my corner.
Look, you made a compelling argument for Henry, and watching Henry was so frustrating as a United fan. You could not get the ball off that man. It was really annoying.
And the ball always found a way to get
But you ate the best, so.
Yeah, exactly.
So to wrap it up, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Thierry Henry is our GOAT Premier League footballer. But unfortunately, they have a happy man on my right here. But I will say this. There's a few players with fans that aren't present at this table that deserve a shout.
Ryan Giggs.
Ryan Giggs.
I don't need to shout.
Guys like David Silva.
Lampard.
Steven Gerrard, he would never be there because he never won the actual thing, but he definitely does the shout as one of the greatest. Frank Lampard.
Yeah, 100%.
So at the end of the day, we're going to leave it up to you guys. Who do you guys think is the greatest Premier League player of all time? That's a wrap.
Signing out.